Welcome to the Tuesday Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11, breaking down all the pitchers for today's slate. Decent options, some value guys to pair up, especially if you're looking to stack that Coors game tonight, which features the Rockies. No weather concerns to really look at tonight, so that's nice. We can kind of enter things with a pretty clear slate as far as weather goes. Jumping right into things, 7:05. You got the Braves at Nationals. Gio Gonzalez stands out in this one as a solid GPP play. You're looking at Washington, heavy favorites sitting at 180, 7.5 over under. Gonzalez, a guy who was mostly a GPP last year, sometimes a strong SP2 consideration, depending on the slate. Could have even been a 1. But a decent 9.8 swing strike rate last year, 22% K rate. His walks are up a little bit, 9.1%. 3.77 Sierra. The guy does keep the ball on the ground. He does keep the ball in the park, which is nice. You look at the Braves offense, who's been pretty pesky so far. Kind of knocking around Scherzer a little bit last night. You're also looking at they hit Wainwright pretty hard, but different here. You're looking at righties against lefties. And so far, Braves 24% strikeout rate against left-handers. Also, not big power numbers against lefties last year. They really struggled. They do strike out more against southpaws than righties. And you're kind of taking away Markakis and Freeman, their two best hitters there, that are left-handed bats as well. So I really don't mind Gonzalez. Strong consideration for cash games on DraftKings because he's just 8,600. That's fairly cheap. DK, GPP only. I do lean on him a little bit more as far as tournament play goes, just because I think you can get production a little bit cheaper on DK, but I don't think you'll find anyone that has, more of a strikeout upside down low than him at the moment. So moving on to the next one, 7:05, Robbie Erlin, Charlie Morton. Over under of 8, these teams, both bad offenses, but both bad pitchers on the hill as well. If I had to lean one way, it would be Charlie Morton. I just prefer his numbers a little bit more. You're looking at a 57% ground ball rate last year. Yes, he did have an ERA in the high 4s. Doesn't walk a ton of guys. Not a big strikeout guy either. 3.89 Sierra. You're looking at the ballpark. It's pretty average for hitters. Some cooler weather might help him. Phillies are slight favorites, but it's essentially a pick 'em. He's not on my radar for FanDuel, but I mean, if you're looking 6,900 and a guy who's likely going to throw a quality start against a Padre team that's really stumbled out of the gates here, which as expected, and they do inflict strikeouts upon themselves, so you could see Morton maybe get 1 or 2 extra than his normal self. So Morton, not a bad SP2 guy, especially if you're trying to load up on bats. I don't think I mind it there. Next one, Yankees and Blue Jays. Masahiro Tanaka, Aaron Sanchez, Toronto, small favorites, -120, 8.5 over under. Not really pinning a lot of hope in the pitchers, keeping this one, fairly low scoring, although Tanaka does have stuff to keep, hitters at bay. But you're looking at also facing one of the best offenses in the league. Blue Jays could have come out a little bit higher strikeout rate so far to start the season, but as we know, they crush right-handed pitching, they crush left-handed pitching. They're in the Rogers Center, enhances runs and home runs there. So overall, I mean, Tanaka GPP only just because you are hoping that he can rack up some strikeouts because this team is a team that can strike out a fair amount. So definitely GPP only. As far as Aaron Sanchez goes, same thing. Really, he struggled with lefties last season, but didn't show any signs of that in his first start. And I'm looking at this Yankees offense, and I think they're going to be fairly boom or bust to start the season, or most of the season here. But they've come out of the gate pretty strong against right-handers. They do have a ton of lefty bats. I'm not a big fan of Sanchez. I think you can easily fade this game as far as pitchers go. But Tanaka, if you wanted to be completely different, if you were tossing in multiple GPP entries, he's worth a look. Next one, we're looking at Orioles and Red Sox. Baltimore undefeated. Over under of 9. Boston is favored by -154. I think we can pretty much skip along this one. Right, not a guy on my radar tonight. Guy's really struggled in his career. He doesn't keep the ball on the ground. Not a big strikeout guy either. Just a 7.3 swinging strike percentage. Walk rate a little bit above normal. 1.81 homers per nine last year in 44 innings. I think you're firing up a lot of Red Sox bats here. And on the other side, I think you were definitely firing up Baltimore bats just because Clay Buchholz, yes, he's been solid at times. He goes through stretches where he's been good. I mean, if you look at it Sierra-wise, comparison to last year, he's fourth on today's slate behind Fernandez, Syndergaard, and Kluber. Um, Buchholz is a guy who, when he has things working, when he has that changeup working, he can be pretty solid. But I won't be taking a chance there against this Baltimore team that's ungodly 1 through 9. I mean, they can just go off. So on a full slate with tonight, I'll be staying away from Buchholz. Next game, we're taking a look at Marlins and Mets. This game features two electric arms. I am really excited to watch this one. I mean, Jose Fernandez, Noah Syndergaard, two laser throwers with an over-under of 6. Mets are strong favorites in this one in comparison to both the arms on the slate. 141 there. As I mentioned, just a 6 over-under. I don't think there's going to be a ton of runs scored with these two arms on the hill. Both teams, subpar offenses to start the season. Marlins kind of broke out last night, but really, I mean, Syndergaard, this guy absolutely brings the juice. 12.2 swinging strike percentage, 27-point K rate. Can struggle with the long ball at times, 1.14 homer per 9 last year, 2.95 SIERA. Both these guys don't walk a ton of guys, 5.1% each as far as base on balls go. So you are really looking at two of the favorite arms tonight as far as the one who's going to come out and get a win. I think you can look at Syndergaard being the likely. And on DK, there's a pretty good difference. I mean, Fernandez, 11,900, Syndergaard, 10,400. That's a pretty big deal there. I definitely lean more towards Syndergaard. I think Fernandez would be the GPP play in that consideration just due to pricing alone. As far as FanDuel goes, Syndergaard's your top option, obviously coming off that monster game where he struck out 9 in 6 innings, didn't allow a run. So you're looking for that type of production yet again out of an 11K guy, and I definitely think he can bring it. I think there's enough value on the slate to kind of work them into lineups, but you're kind of trending off of that Coors game. But on a full slate, there is plenty to go around as far as hitters go. So definitely look at both those guys. Both are electric arms. Both I will have plenty of shares sprinkled in through my lineups in and out of cash and GPP. 7-10, looking at Corey Kluber on the road to face Tampa. Matt Moore going. Cleveland, small favorites, 132 over-under of 7. You're looking at a game that's probably going to be pretty low scoring. And Kluber, I don't see him getting quite the buzz as far as Syndergaard and Fernandez go tonight. I think he's an interesting swerve. He is your most expensive pitcher on DK tonight at 12,200. So I think that kind of is going to deplete his ownership just a little bit. But a GPP play for me because you can look at Syndergaard at 10,400 for basically 2,000 less there. So I'll be looking his way. But as far as the Rays go, I think this is a solid matchup for Kluber to do some damage. The Rays, really a 26% strikeout rate so far to start the season against right-handers. They rank 19th in the WOBA. And as we know, the Rays weren't a strong offense against right-handers last year. They did have an average strikeout rate. You're looking at Kluber, a 13% swinging strike rate. The guy doesn't walk a ton of bats. Does struggle with the long ball a little bit, but you're looking at the Tropicana field there, kind of limits power. So a decent pitcher's park there for Kluber to pitch indoors, gets out of the cold in Cleveland. Looking at him to definitely bounce back after that rough first start against the Red Sox. So Kluber, a solid GPP play tonight. I think he's even worthy of cash, but I'll probably just be taking the extra savings to work in another big bat there. 8-10. Oh, sorry. I guess we can look at Matt Moore here. Decent matchup against Cleveland. More is a GPP play because one, he struggles to keep the ball in the yard. A poor ground ball rate, under 40% last year. Does have a decent swinging strike percentage, 9.9%. But you're also looking at an Indians team where really, I mean, their best hitters are left-handed. Most of them are switch hitters, so they'll be coming over to the right side. I mean, the Indians have started out poor against Southpaws this season. But, I mean, overall, I think they do have some guys that could worthy your attention as far as Rajay Davis, Marlon Byrd, Lindor, Santana not bad from the right side as well. So more kind of a tricky GPP guy. I think he's kind of off my radar a bit tonight, but I definitely don't hate the matchup. I just think he's priced right around Gio Gonzalez for 200 less on DK, which kind of takes him off the map for me. FanDuel goes, I mean, the guy's only 6K. That is interesting because now you're putting him around Charlie Morton, Robbie Erlin. I mean, he's the third least expensive guy on the slate, and I think he's definitely worthy of a look. I don't think a win's in doubt with Kluber on the hill, but as we saw last night, I mean, even if Tropiano against the A's didn't get that win, he was still one of the higher scoring pitchers on the slate. And I don't think that'll be the case for tonight just because of the options. But if he can sit in that mid range for a guy that's 6K and come out, with really solid value, and you load up on Coors guys and you load up on guys at Fenway that go off, you're sitting pretty come the end of the night. So keep that into consideration with Moore. It's a decent matchup for him, and he does have strikeout potential. 8-10, Chris Medlin, Mike Fiers, over-under of 8. We saw Houston's offense go off last night. Houston small favorites. I'm looking at Fiers here. A decent strikeout guy, 24% last year, 9.8 swinging strike percentage. Home runs per 9, not solid, 1.2. He's a guy, his ground ball rate scares me away. You look at the Royals offense kind of stumbling out of the gate here, but they still are one of the best in the game. You look, their strikeouts have been up this season, but of course it is a small sample size. But overall, they're a team that doesn't strike out a ton. So I'm not a big fan of Fiers there tonight. As far as Medlin goes, I'm staying away from him in this game just because of his price considerations around too many other guys that I like a little bit more. So I think you can kind of pin this one off as a game that's going to be fairly high scoring. So 8:40 Giants Rockies. We will skip right along because it features Jeff Samardzija and Tyler Chatwood. Over under of 11. San Francisco small favorites. There's no way in hell I will be taking either of these two pitchers. Let's go to the late games. 10:05 Hector Santiago, Kendall Graveman, Oakland small favorites, 7.5 over under there. And Kendall Graveman, he's a guy who's interesting because he's going up against an Angels offense that up until last night has not done a thing against right-handers or left-handers. They've really struggled start the season here. 29th in WOBA. They're not striking out a ton, but as far as Graveman goes, you're just looking for a quality start. He's kind of off my radar. I'd rather take a chance, on a guy like Matt Moore for cheaper, even though he has 1,000 more than Graveman. But there are some cheap guys that you can pair up as far as SP2 goes, and FanDuel lineups that you can just pile up bats on. I'm not recommending that for cash games, but I think GPPs it's worth a look. Even with guys like Syndergaard and Fernandez and Kluber on the slate, because I think those are going to be your heavy hitters, but also it's going to force people to kind of pay down for bats. And if they can't get those bats and you can hit on the right ones, it's one that can really pay off. But as far as the other side goes, I think Hector Santiago, an interesting play, mainly because this guy has a little bit more upside strikeout-wise. 8.5 swinging strike percentage last year, fairly average, but 21% K rate, pretty average. He's a guy who allows a ton of home runs, 1.44 last season. Is a big-time fly ball pitcher, 29% ground ball rate. He is in Odako Coliseum. It is nice for as far as suppressing homers. He does face a team that, outside of Josh Reddick and Chris Davis, those are the only real two guys with any sort of pop that can burn him. So I'm looking at a pretty decent matchup here. I mean, Athletics have struck out at a decent rate so far to start the season, 24%. Part of that is coming in with a couple guys like Chris Davis, who's going to add an extra punch out or two to your team each go around. So Santiago, not a bad play. I'm looking at those two offenses. They're very, very bad. And I think a 7.5 total there is going to be definitely hit the under as far as which guy is going to come out and get some run support. And I don't have faith in either, but I would definitely lean on Hector Santiago a little bit more there. So 10-10, Derek Holland, Wade Miley, two lefties going on the hill. Seattle favored by -127. 7.5 over under there. Both teams, as far as hitting lefties go, not particularly great. Mariners have struggled against lefties so far. They got shut down by Colby Lewis, which says a lot. I mean, really, you look at this Mariners offense, and outside of Cruz and Cano and Seager, it's not much. So if you can neutralize them and keep the damage pretty low, if they do anything, if you can keep guys off base, you're going to be pitching pretty solid. Derek Holland, he's a guy who not a big strikeout guy, a guy that's not really on my radar tonight. Failed to keep balls in the park as well. Poor ground ball rate. Wade Miley, I mean, this guy was a quality start type of pitcher at times last year. Does a better job of keeping balls in the park. Going to be fine and safe. Go out there. He can eat minutes, or eat minutes. He can eat innings. 49% ground ball rate. Strikeout rate is just on par with Holland there. So you're not looking for a ton of strikeouts. But I mean, as far as what matchup can produce them, you're looking at the Rangers. 28% strikeout rate so far against Southpaws. They did have a decent strikeout rate last year in 2015. So those are definitely some considerable options out there out west. But I think I'm looking more at that 10:05 game as far as Angels Athletics go, as far as value at SP2. So wrapping things up here, DK, really, Kluber comes in, Fernandez, Syndergaard, all worthy of pitchers in all formats. Syndergaard, my favorite out of the group. Tanaka, Gonzalez, more GPP plays for me. As far as value goes, Charlie Morton, Hector Santiago, Kendall Graveman, all worthy of looks as far as cheap SP2 goes to really pay up for those bats. Over on FanDuel, I mean, you're looking at Syndergaard being a top option, Fernandez and Kluber, all priced over 10,000. Your only pitchers priced over 10,000. All three in play for me. I think Syndergaard's still my favorite out of that bunch there. Gio Gonzalez, a solid pivots for a little bit cheaper. Still not completely in love with the price tag, but I do think he's worth a look. And then you can go lower. Hector Santiago, and Matt Moore, kind of the two other arms. And I just think pricing-wise, in the price where everything's out, it shortens my list on FanDuel there. So that's going to wrap things up here with the pitcher nail down. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.